Stanford did a study together with the MIT Media Lab. Why are 95% of AI projects failing? Because that's a MIT study that's confirmed as of the fourth quarter of last year. So, a couple of months ago. Why 95% are failing?
Welcome to the Ministry at Scale podcast. I'm your host, Chad Williams. Join us as we discuss trends, learn from experts, and share practical tips about how to help your ministry multiply its digital impact. This podcast is being sponsored by 5Q and our new Launch AI service. Your ministry is already feeling the pressure. Everyone's talking about AI, your team's experimenting with tools, but nothing is connecting to real, measurable impact. Well, Launch AI changes that. It's a dedicated leadership team for your ministry built on human-first, AI-empowered framework. So every decision honors your values, earns your board's trust, and actually moves the mission forward. In just 90 days, Launch AI will establish AI governance, select and configure the right tools for your team, create and test several use cases, and train your staff for immediate productivity gains. Stop experimenting, start multiplying. Find out more at 5q.com/launch. That's FIVEQ.com/launch. Well, welcome to the Ministry at Scale podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Gregory Richardson joining us. Gregory and I met, what was it? I think it was just over a year ago at the Missional AI Conference. He is the founder of 6 Levers AI Consulting and Coaching, and that's where he helps businesses, organizational leaders harness AI to solve real problems. He's got a breadth of experience. He's served with organizations as diverse as Blackberry, McAfee, down to ministries like Global Media Outreach and educational institutions like Redemption Seminary. Gregory is also the author and speaker and works at the intersection of business, faith, cybersecurity, and AI. Gregory, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you having me, Chad. Always a pleasure to communicate and speak and get to share with a Christian brother. I still find that rarer than it should be out in the marketplace. So I really cherish whatever time we get to spend together.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So Gregory, you've spent decades at that intersection that I just talked about, faith, technology, cybersecurity. So just talk with us about your journey. Just share how you got to the place where you realized the church needed someone in this lane.
Yeah. The way you, and I'm going to be very, very, very transparent. I'm obviously not going to lie in general, but I'm going to be more than just truthful. I'm going to really peel back the curtain. So I'll be a little vulnerable is the word I'm looking for.
Great.
The way you've phrased the question gives me more credit than is due.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, now looking back at my 35 years of experience in the marketplace as an entrepreneur, as a cybersecurity leader, as a former CISO, as a cybersecurity engineer, etc., I can now identify that I've spent time at the intersection of faith and technology. However, for most of that time, probably for the last, if I've been doing this for like 35 years, which is about accurate, maybe for the last 30 years of that, or the 30 years of that, I struggled immensely with. I'm a strong Christian. Christianity permeated every aspect of my being, but I didn't see where the other, quote, other side of me, that technology side, which also permeated every fiber of my being, I didn't see how they came together for most of my adult life. I constantly felt like there was the tech side of Greg, the work side, the commerce side, the business side, the corporate side, and there was the Christian side. Only recently has God given me a sense of, I almost want to say peace or purpose is probably better, about the fact that at that intersection is probably where he designed me to be. So for 20 years, 25 years, easy, I would pray constantly, God, When are you going to get me out of these secular companies, these companies filled with, non-Christians, agnostics, atheists? And if you ever worked like deep in the tech space, Silicon Valley companies, et cetera, I spent a lot of time there. That's just being transparent. That's the true posture. There's a lot of people in there that think our Christian worldview is insane. I would routinely get, dude, you're smart, you're successful, you're killing it out here. Why are you adhering to this 5,000-year-old goofy book with fairy tales in it? And that never challenged me. I wasn't, oh my God, I'm ashamed of it. It's not that. But I felt like I didn't belong there. So I pray, God, when am I going to get out of here? When do you need me to quit this and go and, start a church, be a youth pastor, be a deacon, be a usher, whatever, tell me. But when are you going to tell me to stop doing this temporary thing and go and do my permanent thing? And a couple of years ago, I realized wherever I go, I realized God didn't give me a toggle switch that says I'm Christian Greg and I'm corporate Greg. I am Christian Greg, and I carry God's presence with me in every meeting, in every experience, in every company. I've literally seen companies flourish because of the presence of Christians, secular companies, publicly traded companies on the stock market. I've seen them flourish because of the presence of Christians that are praying in the organization. And when those Christians leave, the organization struggles. When God showed me that, and then at an interpersonal level, I've had people, the same people that would tell me, you're too smart, too successful, you're doing too good to adhere to this goofy book. When God forbid, when their wife gets struck with cancer, or their husband leaves them, those are the ones that'll grab you at the water cooler and say, hey, I don't even know what you believe in 100%, but I don't know what to do. Like my money, my success, my everything I've built up over the years, cancer doesn't care about any of it. Death didn't care about any of it. Divorce didn't care about any of it. And I'm in despair right now. Could you do something? And I'm like, you want me to pray for you? Yes, please pray for me. I don't even know who you're praying to, but please pray for me. And that's when I started realizing that me and Christians being in that environment might be the only experience, the only on-ramp to Jesus a lot of people get. So while it sounds cool, like, I'm at the intersection of blah, 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 blah. Really and truly, I struggled with it for many, 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 many decades. And now I'm starting to realize maybe I don't need to struggle with it. And I know the answer has been super long, but I'm going to tap one other thing to the end of it. As Christians, and I don't know how I should have asked before we started. I don't know how Christian, overtly Christian your podcast is, but I'm going to go really overtly Christian for a second. As
our audience
Christians,
is ministries, so you're great.
Good, thank
fantastic. You. Yep.
Thank Jesus. If it was like pure tech dudes are out there scratching their head. They're like, what is this weirdo talking about? Good.
This is fantastic.
As Christians, we understand very, very clearly, like the whole Pauline corpus, which is, like 70% of the New Testament, gives very clear guidelines. These are the spiritual gifts, evangelism, this how this functions in the church setting. This is, when there's tongues, there needs to be interpretation, prophesying, this is the way you should do it, et cetera. So we have very, very clear guidelines as Christians on how the spiritual gifts appear, manifest, behave, and how they're supposed to be ordered in the church context. Where I think we could do a better job for weirdos like me that spent long amounts of years coming to church multiple times a week and learning about the Bible, but then also needing to come out of church and go into a secular environment. How do those, I could have used more teaching on how the spiritual gift, the same prophecy, the same apostolic, the same evangelism that God might have gifted me with, how does that appear in the corporate world? I kind of had to figure a lot of that out on my own. I had to, read a lot. I actually went and got my master's in biblical studies so that I could better exegete the text to understand a lot of the surrounding context and deeper lessons that people like Paul and Moses, etc., put into the scriptures so that I could apply it more broadly. Because Paul wasn't exclusively talking to Christians in church. He obviously was talking to, tent makers like himself and other people out in the marketplace as well. But I missed that. And I wish I had more of that, but everything happens for a reason. So enough with my long rambling answer.
That's fascinating, Greg. I mean, there's lots of different angles, lots of other questions popped in my mind, but just that last one. My observation when you're talking about the spiritual gifts, most people either tie them like directly to talents, or it's something special given to a person just in the church setting, right? At least that's my observation. So as you've done additional research, I'd love to hear, how have you processed that? Like, where are you at right now? How would you answer the question, hey, how does my spiritual gift set with a person in a context of the marketplace?
I'll give you a real, there's so many easy examples of this. I'll give you two easy examples. One, what's the job of the evangelist? The job of the evangelist is to go out and spread the gospel. So and you're going to see the transition immediately. That's fundamentally the salesperson of the gospel. There are people that I've crossed paths with in my professional career that are I shouldn't even say inherently, they're clearly gifted with sales. One gentleman up in New York, total non-Christian. Every other word out of his mouth is cursing. But him and I have had a business relationship for about 20 years. And when I have a sales related question, strategy, how should I do this? How should I pitch it? He's the guy that I call if I can get him on the phone, because he's a CP at a publicly traded company. He's very busy. Maybe he has the gift of evangelism, and that's how it appears in the church, in the commerce world. Maybe I have that same gift as well, where I saw it in the church world. I can go out and talk to random strangers about the gospel. I was never shy about it, as is obvious from this conversation. But maybe that ability to have difficult conversations on sometimes highly complex topics also translates to my ability to talk about AI. That's one overlap. Another one, I see this in the consulting world for sure. The apostolic is often tied to, the master builder. Paul talks about that, he's a wise master builder, et cetera. And the word used there is architect. So and what does an architect fundamentally do? An architect is able to visualize the entire end product based on what's on paper. So he knows, at that spot right there is where the PVC pipe has to come for the plumbing. It can't be an inch to the left or an inch to the right, because the sheetrock is about to come and surround it. The architect sees that. He can direct the plumber, you need to put this here. Trust me, don't move it. It needs to be exactly there. And he can tell the sheetrock guy, you need to put this exactly here. He can tell the concrete guy, you need to put the foundation exactly in this manner, because he sees the end picture. That's fundamentally a consultative perspective. The best PwC, Accenture, cybersecurity, AI consultants are the ones that can talk to a customer, say, how's your business running right now? Oh, okay. And you're trying to figure out where to make AI fit? Got it. I see you have a different problem. It's not just, you're not just trying to solve an AI tool problem. You have a bottleneck right here. And let me explain you how we're going to get across that bottleneck. That's fundamentally what my book is about. There's this framework that, again, candidly, I got it during a sermon my pastor was giving. But it's tied to how we take the tech tool out of the tech problem we're trying to solve. And I think that might be an apostolic gifting. So that's two examples of where a spiritual gifting might surface in that manner in a commercial or corporate or technological setting.
Sure.
It's going to sound super goofy, except to, your audience probably. Especially early on in career, there were multiple times where I was faced with a problem. I'll give you a real one that'll date me, but this is exactly what happened. Just came out of college. My boss assigned me to, hey, go visit this customer. He has a problem with Peachtree accounting. You got to be pretty old to even understand what I'm talking about there, but trust me, there was a tool called Peachtree, and it was very popular. I didn't know Peachtree accounting. I went, boss, you'll figure it out. The guy's not a technical guy. He's just a CFO. Help him with the technical part of it. The guy starts asking me a bunch of questions. I can't answer him. Like, I do not know where that option is in the program. I've never even seen the manual before. I know what Peachtree is, but I'm not an expert on it. So now I'm sweating bullets. The customer looks at me, says, listen, it's clear that I know more about Peachtree than you know. So go and find someone who knows more about Peachtree and then come back and answer. I need these 3 problems solved. I literally walked out. I said, gotcha. Give me an hour. I literally walked out of his office, and this was in the late 80s. Okay. So yeah, late 80s. So there was no internet. There was no, I'm going to Google how to do this. There was no, it literally didn't exist yet. I walked out and I was walking on the main street in the city and I started praying. I said, God, I have no foggy clue how to answer this. You need to tell me how to answer this. It wasn't 5 steps I'd taken, and I saw it clear as day. Click here, 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 here. And that's the first answer. The second one is you're going to do this, this. You're going to go here, scroll here, and go. And the third one is do this, this, this. I kept walking for about 15 minutes. There was no Starbucks in those days either, so I couldn't even go to Starbucks. And I walked back up to the customer and said, I found the answers for you, Mr. Customer, those 3 questions. First, we're going to do this, this, this. Then I'm going to do this, this, this. Then we're going to do this, this, this. Customer was amazed, called my boss, said, this guy that you have here, he's young, he's kind of inexperienced, but I gave him a challenge and he solved it for me within the hour. Wherever you got him, he's a great guy. That answer came directly from the Holy Spirit. I had never seen Peachtree before. I'd never seen a Peachtree manual. God gave me the answer. I wouldn't say that to most other technical people because they're going to think I'm nuts, but I'm telling you, there is no other place I could have gotten the answer from. God gave me the answer. And that's happened to me multiple times, like I said, especially early in career, where customers, we need to get this solved. I don't know where, like, why is the network freezing right now? Walk outside, pray, God, why is the network freezing? Go and check in the back closet. There's a switch over there that's flooding, right? All right, let me go and check. Yep, there's a switch over here that has a broadcast storm on it. We need to kill this. Oh my God, how'd you fix the network? You're amazing. Okay, yeah, fine, I'm amazing. But I knew I wasn't amazing.
I mean, that just gives me chills.
100% God's gift.
That really gives me chills, and it's just to hear how practical and how dependent. Whether or not, like, I've never had that experience where God would say, "This is the specific answer," but especially in the early days of my business, how many times did I pause and say, "Lord, please give me wisdom in this moment with this decision," and it's that daily learning to be daily dependent upon Jesus and daily dependent upon the Holy Spirit. No matter how he actually brings the answer to us, I think it's that level of dependency, I think, that I've sensed in our connections over the last year that I've really appreciated. I agree.
And
yeah, that's really good.
I'll give you some context on where that came from. I said that I've been a Christian for a very long time. I remember, and this is a little, this is difficult for me to talk about, but I promised I'd be super transparent on this conversation. I remember at 4 years old, I was the first person in my family going to church. I believe my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was dragging me to church. Well, was, picking me up and saying, this young man needs to go to church. He's coming to church. My mom was not saved. My father was and still is. Both my mom and my father are alive. My mom was not saved. Would not come to church with me. My father was an alcoholic, functional alcoholic, very successful, but absolutely an alcoholic. No bones about it. I remember at 4 years old praying, God, I want my mom to start coming to church with me. I remember at 4 years old praying, I want my father to stop drinking. On my 6th birthday, it was a Sunday, June the 30th, in the 70s, early 70s. My mom said, I'm coming to church with you today. I thought it was weird. I was 4 to 6, so it was 2 years have passed. I thought it was weird, but okay, no problem. Come to church with me. Came to church, pastor preached something. I don't even know what the pastor preached, but long story short, at the end of the service, they did an altar call. My mom went up and got saved.
Wow.
About a year later, my dad came home and my dad is a big dude, very successful. He was like the Secretary of State of the country where I'm from, he's like 7 feet tall. So he's like a strapping, big, powerful, authoritative dude. He came home one day and he was from a night of drinking. And it was daytime, like on a Saturday during the day. And he came in and he kneeled on the floor next to my mom and dad's bed and says, I cannot control this alcohol thing. I am not strong enough to stop drinking. And he was bawling, crying. And he immediately signed up and went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And he went into Alcoholics Anonymous and was stone sober for years. For like 10, 15 years. Then he started drinking again, and it is what it is. But so by that point, those were the two only prayer requests I had. God answered both of them unequivocally. So by 7 years old, you couldn't tell me that God didn't answer prayer and wasn't concerned with the things that concerned me. That was imprinted into me at that age. That's why at my, early 20s, 19, 20, it was the most normal thing for me to say, God, I don't know how to fix this computer problem. God, you got to help me fix this computer problem. Because I'd seen it, and those two were two formative things, my mom and my dad, but there was 1,000 things between then. There's 1,000 things through college. So you couldn't tell me otherwise. So that's why it was so normative for me to say I'm gonna pray about technology. I still do it today, but it fundamentally boils down to that dependence that you said. I for whatever reasons, the circumstances of my life, the things I saw, the hurts that I incorporate. And you got to understand, the devil, most things in life are a two-edged sword. So while I'm praying for my mother to come to church with me, years of therapy have shown me I allowed a lie from the enemy to creep into my soul because of that as well. Because I wasn't praying for my mother to get saved because it was good for her. I was praying for my mother to get saved because I identified that as, if my mom doesn't want to come to church with me, she doesn't love me. So that whole, I was praying for my mom to get saved, it sounds like this is an amazing testimony. It was a very traumatic experience for me. That trauma brought me to where I am today. That the trauma of seeing my father go missing for the whole weekend and coming home with 3 friends, literally have to carry him in the house because he's totally blacked out drunk. And then crying on the bed saying, I wish I could stop drinking, but I can't stop drinking. The man that is the scariest, most intimidating man I've ever met in my life. A liquor? A drink, some liquid in a cup. This is tea, by the way. I'm not drinking bourbon in the morning. Some liquor in a cup is more powerful than he is. That's a very traumatic thing for a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old to experience. This is why to this day, I've never had a sip of alcohol. People would see me and, oh my God, you've never drank? That's amazing. I'm like, it's not amazing. It's just, that's never been my weakness. I've had other weaknesses, but alcohol has never been it because of the trauma I've seen alcohol cause. So that's the pain. I'm trying to say the painful things, and hopefully this encourages someone that's listening. The painful things that you're going through in your life right now, I guarantee you, they serve purpose to strengthen you, to build perseverance. That all points towards hope. If you could just hold on and persevere just a smidge longer through the holy crap, this is terrible. I guarantee you there is always hope at the end of it. There is always a redemptive aspect at the end of it. I am living, breathing, walking proof. I dropped out of college. So I'm running around here with a high school degree. At one point in my career, probably about 3 years ago, I was making $1.6 million a year, W-2 salary, working for cybersecurity companies on a high school degree. That's all God. I'm not saying that to say, oh, look at how awesome. I'm saying that to say the painful stuff serves a purpose, and the purpose usually isn't financial. It's just financial is the easy one to categorize, and it catches people's attention. The ministry gifts and the opportunities I've had to go and speak to people like I'm speaking to people today, only God could take a loser kid from the Caribbean that dropped out of college. And I didn't drop out of college on some, I want to go and be an entrepreneur like Bill Gates. I was thinking that. But fundamentally, I dropped out of college because my grades were atrocious. I had like all F's and a D. And they were like, bro, this is the third semester you're doing this nonsense. You need to go home like right now. So I dropped out of college in shame for God to take that and then say, exactly. You have proven yourself to be insufficient. Now I can build on top of that. For a kid that decided at, a young age, I'm going to save myself from marriage and, I'm going to get married. And I had my nice little checklist. She's got to come to church. She's got to come to my church. She's got to be, a Christian. I should be a virgin before I get married. I did all of those steps. And then 11 years later, my marriage is a complete, utter disaster, and it's ending in divorce. And there's abuse in the marriage. There's infidelity. Like it's a train wreck. For God to say, you figured out now that you can't, your cute little checklist of if you do this and this and this, then you'll get it to work out is nothing to me. Now take your hands off the steering wheel and let me guide your life a little bit, and let me put you in the places where I need you to be. Because when I'm done with you, Greg, no one is going to be able to say, oh, Greg did this because Greg was a good dude. God made it unshakably certain that any success I have is very obviously due to him, and it is not on any merit of mine whatsoever. I'm not a smart dude. I'm not a lucky dude. I'm not the most strong in terms of willpower dude. I am the I don't want to say the David because that's too high, but I'm picked the one of those goofy characters in the Bible that you're like, this guy's a hot mess. That's Greg. That's who God chose to use to say, this is how I'm going to accomplish my will, because they're going to know this didn't come from Greg.
I mean, again, just the shaping influences that God allows in our life, and they really do make who we are today. And I really appreciate your encouragement to our audience of, if you're going through a hard time right now, part of the hard times that we go through is to help us to realize that, hey, we can't do this on our own. We need the Lord. And whether it's in work, whether it's family, whatever that area is, I've said often, like, Lord, please don't let me hold on too tightly to things, because if you're like, okay, if God is like, okay, no, that's an idol for you, and I have to pry open your hand, it can be really painful. So just desiring to hold things with an open hand, saying, Lord, it's yours and I'm yours. And what is it that you want? That's a great testimony. I appreciate that. So Greg,
that's about 2% of it, but we're good for now. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. So you wrote a book, and you told me a little bit about the background of that book on the 6 levers of technology, or 6 technology levers. So our audiences are ministry leaders, and especially those ministry leaders who are like, maybe they have pockets of AI happening inside of their organization right now, and they know that they see potential, but it's not a part of their standard operating procedure yet as an organization, not just individuals. So if you think about your 6 technology levers, what are the levers that they should be thinking through? Like, what's the next lever they should pull to as they move through AI adoption, not individually, but as an organization?
I should have been marketing wise smart enough to have the book. It's right behind me on my shelf somewhere. I should have had it here, because the subtitle of the book is very important. The subtitle is 6 technology levels. The subtitle is the I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it in front of me. The non-developers or non-technical person's guide to using AI to find the problem and then make a solution, something like that. Emphasis on the non-tech person's guide. Why is that? Why am I stressing that? It's really not a framework exclusive to AI. It's a framework that's applicable to any technology. This framework was applicable to the printing press in the 1500s. It is consistently, and I have a what do you call it, a provisional patent on it. I just presented it at the University of California. Like it is, there's substance behind it. It's not just a cute little acronym, create, like creation story. There's real substance and real research and thought that was put behind this, all inspired by something my pastor said in a sermon, a couple of years back. And the intent of it is to directly answer your question. In order to get the maximum value out of the technology, it requires you putting the technology down first. So the thing that I got to tell most corporate leaders, nonprofit leaders, pastors, church leaders, etc., you're probably being the person that just bought a shiny hammer and you're walking around in your ministry or your business looking for where are the things that I could whack with that shiny hammer.
Whether it's a nail
and that'll give you, exactly, that'll give you a couple of cool things where, yeah, we used to take 3 weeks to pound that nail in. I get it done in seconds now. But you're also going to get a couple of places where we were writing an email and now I've broken my monitor because I hit it with the hammer. Hammer doesn't fix everything. It's not applicable to everything. So the intentionality behind the key framework that the 6 levers are built on. The 6 levers, by the way, are CREATE, create. Those are the 6 levers. C is customer research. Who has the problem in your organization that you're trying to solve? And there's very clear intention behind this that I'm going to explain in a second. R is research the problem. Okay, so you know who has the problem. What is their problem? What's their pain point? You got to understand that crystal clear. The next one is E, that is envision. Okay, so now you know the problem. You know who has the problem. You know what the problem is. Now you got to map out, architect how the solution could look. Notice what I haven't spoken about at any point of the framework yet. We're 3 levels into the 6. We haven't spoken about technology yet. A is assemble the toolbox. Exactly. If you come at it from, I just got this new model, it does really great videos, we should be making videos. I just got this model, it writes really good prose or emails or blog posts, we should be writing blog posts. You quickly get distracted and you're out in the wild doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And Stanford studied this. Stanford, a group of Stanford PhDs, I met them last weekend, and they presented this, and I was blown away by it because I was like, that's exactly what I'm experiencing in the wild. I just didn't have the language for it. Well, they gave me the language for it. Stanford did a study together with the MIT Media Lab. Why are 95% of AI projects failing? Because that's that MIT study that's confirmed as of the 4th quarter of last year. So, a couple of months ago. Why 95% are failing? Stanford determined that it was because AI, without constraints, creates a new term of problem that we call AI work slop, which is you're building stuff with AI, whether it's an app, email, some prose, a blog post, social media posts, a workflow, an automation, etc. That's not directly tied to what your business problems are. And the outcomes are not directly tied to the exact outcome you needed. So it's doing some stuff over here, and it's really good at creating volumes of that stuff. But by the time you get through the volume of it, you realize this is fluff or work slop. It looks like work. It looks like you're being productive. Holy cow, our output on social media went through the roof. We used to have 1 blog a year. Now we got 17 blogs per week. But when you go and look at the blogs, the readership is dropped. The personality is missing out of the blogs. The blogs all read the same. You thought you had this problem, but it's actually not this, not this, not this, but it's this. After about 5 of those, you realize, why is everything framed that way? It's probably because AI wrote it. AI work slop. And the amount of time they've calculated, it takes just over 40% of time that's wasted to figure out that this output that's now floating around in your environment is complete slop that you're going to have to kick out and start the process over. That's why AI projects fail. So when I come into an organization and I'm getting ready to help them with AI, the first thing I say, stop spending on AI. Yes, I'm the AI guy. I'm probably going to ask you to spend more on AI, but first we're going to have to pause spending. Don't get another tool. Yeah, I know this is the hottest new tool and they just dropped it in Claude, blah, 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 or GPT, blah, blah, blah. It's so amazing. Nope, you don't need that right now. Let's first figure out the C, the R, and the E. Who has the problem? What is the problem? How can we solve the problem? Now we'll apply a tool to it. Now that we know who has the problem and what is the problem and how we could solve it, what tool does that well? Do we even need AI videos? Do we even need UGC content? Do we even need more social media posts? If you're not in the type of environment where that's useful, you shouldn't be doing it just because the tool happens to do it. Not because you bought that hammer means you need to be just swinging nails all over the place.
Yeah. Starting with why. That resonates with actually 5Q's namesake. We started as a website development firm, and it's 5 questions. Like the first question is, who is your audience? Second question is, how do we define success? And the third is, what is the next step that we want the user to take? And so, yeah, I so resonate with that. So often we get to the what before we've answered the why. And that's exactly what you're doing with that.
Years of working in cybersecurity with literally some of the largest organizations in the world, from governments to the UN, to the biggest banks in the world, to the biggest manufacturing firms in the world, et cetera. This is not a new problem to AI. We've been doing this with technology. When the cloud came along 10-ish, maybe more years ago, oh my God, throw everything up to the cloud. The cloud's going to be amazing. It's going to be cheaper. We're not going to have servers. We're not going to have data centers. And then you get, a year later, you got a bill from AWS. Holy cow, this cloud stuff is not free. Yeah, you probably shouldn't have thrown a lot of the stuff you threw up to the cloud. You probably shouldn't have thrown that up there, but you had a hammer and suddenly everything became a nail. Same, and I could go on and on and on. So when the internet came out, it was the same. Oh my God, the internet is amazing. Everyone needs to run to the internet. And then, holy cow, we've lost productivity because people are using the internet at work because they now have a faster internet connection on their job than they do at home to do all kinds of stuff that's not useful. So then we pivot the other way. And we're doing the same thing with AI right now in real time. Oh my God, everyone use AI. Oh my God, AI, maybe not as amazing and it's difficult to get a return on investment on it. So now we're going to buy a bunch of tools to monitor and make sure you're not using AI, mister. I got to make sure that, we're going to control how much AI you're using and what you're using it for. And I only want you using these 3 This is exactly what we did with the cloud. It's exactly what we did with the internet. You remember these companies like Blue Coat? I don't even think that exists anymore, but that was a whole company that was out there categorizing every website. So they could come in and put a little box in your company and say, hey, we can make sure that all of your employees are only going to corporate sites. They can't go to any sites with cigarettes. They can't go to any sites with guns. They can't go to any sites with, other bad things or things we don't feel that are useful to them. And that's that whole market segment of we're going to categorize and put URL filters on that whole market segment is gone. But we're rebuilding it now on a market segment where we're going to try to categorize which is the good AI. We want you to use this AI. And if we catch that you're using a different AI, oh my God, there's going to be consequences. So it's cycle of horror if you're a technologist.
There's nothing new under the sun, is there? Nothing new under the sun. Yeah. So with your deep experience in cybersecurity, like most ministry organizations have a lot of sensitive data. Counseling notes, donor records, children's information, COPPA, those types of things. So what are some of the top security risks that a ministry might be exposing themselves to, and what do you typically recommend that they need to be thinking about to mitigate against those?
This is tough to say because it feels counter. I mostly work with corporations, but I work with some churches as well. I'm glad to work with more churches, but right now corporations are where I spend most of my time. Um, it feels counterintuitive to a church, but typically the things you need to do is you need to slow way down. Churches, in probably small businesses, you see this as well, which is why small businesses are the most at risk for cybersecurity incidents, and it's what's being attacked the most. It's not because they can't afford security; it's because they structurally and systemically do things they shouldn't be doing. Yeah, we need to make donor calls, or we need to make volunteer calls, calls to, 10,000 of our members to confirm whether they're coming out to our Easter service or not. How are we going to do that? We're going to print a bunch of Excel sheets with name, telephone, first name, last name, telephone number, maybe even email address, and we're going to distribute them to 1,000 volunteers in the auditorium, and make calls. Problem is, name, first name, last name, telephone number, that's considered personal identifiable information.
PII, yep.
You've just exposed your entire organization to a massive security risk. And I've seen a church that struggled with this, to where volunteers were coming to the church service, to the volunteer service, to get the data, the Excel sheets, and then they leave with the Excel sheets, and now they're using those same Excel sheets for a marketing campaign that has nothing to do with the church, but they just basically got 600, 700, 800, 1,000 leads for free. Wow. So now they're advertising, hey, we're about to do, a hip hop jamboree or something it's completely secular. And people are saying, where'd you get my number from? Oh, I got it from, church so-and-so. What? Why is the church involved? The church is not involved with it, but they exposed themselves to that risk because they needed to do something good. Like we need to get people to the Easter service because, we're spreading the gospel. But so it kind of requires you to take a step back and, one, do a data assessment. Where all is your data hanging out right now? I'm going through this with a large organization right now, so I can kind of rattle it off. Where all is your data hanging out right now? What are all the code repositories that you have? Who's developing little forms and web apps and vibe coding stuff, et cetera? We need to get them all collected. And what's your cybersecurity posture of the data that you have lingering around in Excel sheets and AWS buckets and Supabase databases, et cetera, et cetera? What of it needs to be secured? Yeah, this is all PII data. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to print that. You shouldn't even be able to throw that on an Excel sheet. Like this is problematic. So those three things is typically what I'll lead with. Hey, let's take our times. It's not a 10-year project. Even if you're a 100,000 member church, we can get stuff like that done in sub 30 days, in 2 weeks. Come in, give you an assessment, give you a full report. Hey, this is where your data is. You had it all over the place. This is what's secured and what's not, and we need to grab some of that's unsecured and put it in secure places. And these are all the code repositories you have. Once you have that, now we could start having a conversation around, okay, now that we know where the data is, maybe we make a one central data lake or data repository where every piece of code you build, every form, everything, rather than it dropping into 17,000 different Excel sheets, it'll all drop into that one data lake. So next week, when your pastor needs a report on what all the visitors, where all the visitors in terms of next steps in their organization, they don't need to grab 17,000 spreadsheets. It's all in that one repository. They don't need to go to no swipe at these companies that I'm about to name. They don't need to go to F1 Go, Fellowship One Go, and Planning Center, because some of the data is there, some of it's there, and some of it's in Excel. Nope, we have one centralized database. All the data is there. We can see all the members, and now we can query who got assigned to baptism, who said they wanted to join a life group, who said they wanted discipleship, et cetera. And we could now, these people, they wanted to be baptized. No one reached out to them yet. Let's go ahead and reach out to them. Now we're doing the work of the gospel in a safe way, in an efficient way. Same thing like I said about on my job. You don't know, my pastor says this all the time, you don't know when someone cracks the door of your church. That might be the first chance for them to meet Jesus that they've had in decades. And it might be like them swiping the QR code or taking a picture of the QR code and saying, I want to do next steps. them getting a timely response back from a person that's been a little bit prayed up to say, hey, how can I help you? You said you wanted to talk about getting baptized. If we let that slip through the cracks, there might be long-term eternity goals or eternity problems to us having poor structure and poor data safety. That's why it's important.
No, that's good. A couple follow-ups. One, like your first thing was, well, we need to slow way down. And that really meshes with something that I just wrote about last week around, like, I've been using your service, Ironclaw. You've been using your service, Ironclaw, and like you feel this pressure to be moving at the speed of agents, where really we should be moving at the speed of wisdom, which means we need to slow down. We need to say, this is the data. Do I understand it? Where do I draw the understanding? If I don't understand it, we should not be acting on it. And so learning to move at the speed of wisdom, not at the speed of agents, is
a real thing. Yep.
Yeah.
I read your blog post. It was phenomenal. Not just because you mentioned the product in it, but like that's fundamental. And everything about the technological space pushes against that.
Yeah,
everything about technology says, quick, you got to move fast. There's a new blah, 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 and there's a new widget, and there's a new model. Quick, if you don't get on this, you're going to miss it. No, calm down, famo. You're not going to, I've been doing technology now for almost 40 years. You're probably not going to miss it. AI is going to be here next year. It's going to be here the year after. You're better off taking your time, taking a breather, thinking about it a bit first. What do I really need? What's really going to move the needle in what my organization needs to do? If my organization needs to get the gospel out to people, what's going to really move the needle? Is a cute video on social media going to move the needle? Or is us first having a better organization? And I'm not suggesting this is always the case. Sometimes a cute video on social media is exactly what your organization needs to do. Then let's run with it. But sometimes before you focus on the cute video on social media, which might draw more people to your door, which would make more people swipe the QR code, which asking to get baptized, but you don't have any structure or system between how they get reached out to when they do that, maybe don't do the cute video yet. Maybe fix the first problem first, so that if and when they do show up and 1,000 people show up at your Easter service and they all swipe the QR code saying, oh my God, this was so moving, it was amazing, I need discipleship. You can actually do some kind of AI level matching to figure out, I now have an influx of 1,000 mentees that are looking for 1,000 mentors. How do we even do that matching? That's a perfect AI use case. But if you haven't thought through it to that point, you'll get the 1,000 people, they'll show up, you'll do a statistic. Holy cow, the visitors went up like crazy. And that was the end of it. I am all about long-term sustainable results. The best companies, churches, organizations that remain successful have sustainable results. The Acts 2 church wasn't a blip on the radar that, look, Peter, Paul, they spoke some stuff and it was cool. And then they disappeared. 2,000 years later, we're still talking about them because it was structural. Paul was there. Peter was there. James was there. This is how we're going to do it. Peter's going to be the elder. These are the standards that you got. That same rigor is what we need to do now. Same rigor that we have to be disciplined about to push against the technology, putting this fake urgency there. You got to do it now, right now. It's the same thing that Paul and Peter and James were encouraging the church to do. Even if an angel from God comes with a new message, you got to be able to say, I've looked at the message, I've listened to it, I've reviewed it. It don't really gel with what we believe around here, so we're able to say no. If you're running, oh my God, he's an angel, he's shining, he's beautiful, it's bright, he can do all kinds of stuff. You're gonna end up desperately on the wrong track too often. I know that's a stretch of an analogy there, but you get where I'm going, Chad.
That's a that's a good analogy. I'm gonna ask you a very real basic, probably a basic question, but just a nuts and bolts question. Because you said, that's the example you just gave, putting the people inside of AI and making those matches match up. Like that feels like you're putting PII data in there. So, I just interacted with some ministries that they don't have any paid versions of AI tools. So like, how would you give advice to an organization so that they can use AI without compromising their PII, their personally identifiable information?
That is a great question, and it is super important. Um, Even the models in general, if you're using a free model, you do not want. There are settings you can do in most of the free models to say, "Hey, don't train on my data," but you do not want to be putting personal identifiable information. So that's first name, last name, and one other piece of information. First name, last name, email. First name, last name, telephone number. First name, last name, zip code. You don't want to put in any of that, and God forbid anything above and beyond that, into any AI that is not a paid AI. Now, there you don't have to get a $10,000 AI. Like there's $20 AI subscriptions, $200 AI subscriptions. Google just dropped their Gemini subscription to I think $150. It used to be $250. They dropped it down to, so there's options out there for you to get a very reasonably priced AI for a single person church. If you got one staff member and it's just you, use that. You're better off being, again, slow it down and be a little bit more intentional and say, God, we're going to need a little extra resourcing to get that paid subscription, because you cannot be putting PII in unpaid free models. The risk is just simply too high. And there have been tons of cases of not just data leaking and people finding out about it afterwards and them feeling ashamed, but there's been lawsuits as well. The lawsuits around PII and around data leakage are typically in the tens of thousands of dollars per record leaked. So you leak an Excel sheet with 100 records, say 10 grand is usually 20 grand, but say 10 grand for argument's sake, you're quickly talking about a metric ton of money that you are liable for as an organization. I've seen big corporations. I've seen a pharmaceutical company in South Carolina shut down. They had cutting edge genetical testing. I think they were supporting that company that used to figure out, who your ancestry is or something. They had the labs and stuff, and they were doing that. They had all kinds of AI models, and they leaked data, and they closed. Like they shut down. They did not exist from one day to the next. We can't afford this anymore, and they don't exist anymore. So I would hate to see that happen to a church that's out there spreading the gospel, but that little extra measure of care that I worst case, clean the data, abstract the names out, let it be first name, last initial. Yeah, anonymize it. Like, there's a million options on what you can do with it, even for something as nuanced as matching. You don't need the full person's first name, last name. Assign a customer number to it. This customer number one, this customer number two. I know what customer number one is, but then what the AI is doing the matching on is everything else, not their first name, not their last name, not their date of birth, not their telephone number, not their email address, but it knows all of the other traits. You made them do a spiritual gifts assessment. You made them do a vocational assessment. You're using that data. You might have done some kind of Myers-Briggs type test, whatever. And all of that was great to do matching on. But you're not matching people based on, well, I want all the Gregs to hang out with Gregs. So you don't really need the PII there. You need the other data.
Yeah.
Scrub the PII out of it. And those types of techniques are what we do in big corporations and, big and small churches, et cetera. But you're only going to come up with that if you stop and pause and slow down. This technology doesn't work well. Contrary to what social media and all of the influencers give you the impression, technology doesn't work well at speed. It doesn't work well with the quick react. Nope. The people that do this stuff the best and are the most successful, trust me when I tell you, they were sitting somewhere in a lab thinking for 3 days before they did 1 day of work.
That's that's so it's good for us to be reminded of that, especially those of us who are in the technology space. And so many days we feel like we're behind the curve. Reality, we're not behind the curve. Reality is, I think this dates me. I remember when early days of web development, there was all these WYSIWYG development tools were coming out, like Front Page, which added all kinds of horrible code to it, and they got out by Microsoft. There was one organization that came to the market late, but they came to the market about a year after all these WYSIWYG tools have been out, and it was Macromedia, and they came out with a tool called Dreamweaver, And it very quickly, it did what a web developer actually needed.
Yep.
Create solid code with no extra stuff in there. And that's always been a lesson to me. They were not the first to market. They were later to market, but they built something that they got that product market fit right. And
Exactly.
it's okay to delay to be able to get that product market fit right. And
Yep.
yeah, no, that's really good.
If I may, Chad, let me give one more interjection on that. Not only is it okay to be late, or to not be first to the market, and this is more to the entrepreneurs. So and if you're a church planter, you're a version of an entrepreneur as well. Sometimes it's okay to not have a novel idea. Like I mentor entrepreneurs through this constantly. Oh my God, I'm the only person that has had this idea. Maybe it's the wrong idea then. Or, oh, I had this idea, but someone else has the idea already. And so there's 1,000 companies out there that do word processors. That's a bad example. There's 1,000 companies out there that do meeting transcription. There's 1,000 companies out there. There's multiple companies out there that do meetings like we're doing. There's Zoom, there's Teams, there's WebEx, and WebEx never said, well, Teams already exists, so we don't need to do it. No, they had their own market. They had their own little segment, and they're quite successful with their segment. So in addition to don't stress about, oh my God, I wasn't the first. Also, don't stress about, I'm the only person that has this idea. But give yourself some grace. Both of them, find your niche, find, who your audience is. And your audience might not care nor know that there's another company that also does XYZ that you're also doing, but they want to work with you because they want to work with you because they're in your audience.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's not the idea that gets traction, it's the execution of the idea.
100%.
Yeah. Well, Gregory, this has been fantastic. Like there's a lot of, we could go probably for another hour. But as we wrap up, as most of our listeners know, I always ask, like, what is one book, podcast, resource that's impacted you recently that you'd like to share with our audience?
One resource that's impact, and I'm again super transparent. I could go tech, I could go a whole bunch of places. I am non-denominational, maybe Pentecostal. Pick one of those two buckets. That's kind of where I've been my entire Christian walk. I make no bones about that. I have no thoughts or intentions of switching that. I would encourage every Christian out there that is serious about their Bible and wants to maybe get a little bit more serious about their Bible. The podcast that I listen to every time it comes out, I think it comes out every 2 weeks, and the podcast episodes are very long. Most of them are over 3 hours. So I listen to it and I re-listen to it and I re-listen to it. And I've been doing this now for years. I would be, on business trips in hotels by myself at night. When I'm getting ready to go to bed, I turn on that podcast and it's playing, the whole night, 8 hours. I wake up in the morning and it's still there playing. It's called the Lord of Spirits podcast. It is an Eastern Orthodox Bible study podcast. If you're up on the stresses and the beefs between churches, that probably causes you some, oh my God, he's Eastern Orthodox. I'm not Eastern Orthodox at all, but I appreciate the rigor that it's two Eastern Orthodox fathers put on how they're studying the Bible. They take their Bible and understanding it well very seriously. They demonstrate a level of respect for the Bible. I'm not picking any fights here, I'm sorry, that I wish in my part of the world, the Pentecostal non-denominational part, I wish we were a bit less laissez-faire about the Bible. In our world, in my world, it's super chill to just grab a random scripture and run down the street with it with zero appreciation for who the original audience was. Is this even applicable to you? The infamous I think it's Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, and it's plans to prosper you, and you're going to do amazing. My mom, bless her heart, when after she got saved, me in college, she pinned that up on my fridge. I know the plans God knows the plans he has for you, Greg. You're going to be successful. Yeah, not everyone is going to be successful. Maybe some of God's plans is for you to suffer. Maybe some of God's plans is for you to go through some stuff that's really going to hurt. Maybe you're going to struggle with depression. Maybe you're going to struggle with overeating. I've struggled with all of these things. Maybe you're going to struggle with addiction. Maybe you're going to be transparent again. Maybe you're going to have a debilitating porn addiction for most of your Christian walk. And it sucks and it's terrible. And you're beating yourself up for years. And you don't feel any prospering. And because Jeremiah 29:11 wasn't written to you. It was written to a different audience with a different purpose. Matter of fact, if you dig into the context of it, it says you're going to be there, I think it was 70 years. So unless you're willing to absorb I'm going to stay in this situation for 70 years and I'm good with it, you probably shouldn't be quoting Jeremiah 29:11. Matter of fact, if you want to quote Jeremiah 29:11, you should probably equally quote Jeremiah, I want to say 44:11, where it says, God says, I will utterly destroy you. It's the same God, same Jeremiah talking to the same audience. If you're going to pick one, you need to also apply the other one. But we do that in our Pentecostal world. We take scriptures that have nothing to do with nothing and we run with it wildly out of context. This is the Eastern Orthodox priests that I'm talking about in the Lord of Spirits podcast. That almost never happens. I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with, worshiping Mary, et cetera, or they don't use the word worship, admiring Mary a lot, or she's still a virgin. I don't agree with all of that stuff, but their treatment of their respect and reverence of the Bible, I think we could learn a metric ton about that. And that's why that would be, if you're interested in getting to know the Bible better, probably a very, very, very good place to start.
That's great. I'll have to listen to that one. What you just talked about, though, it's so easy. It is so easy to jump right to application and forget you've got to do the hermeneutical work to understand the text, to interpret it before you get to application. What does it say? We wouldn't do this
with any other modern literature. Right. We wouldn't take a Toll House cookie recipe and grab one line out of it, add butter and milk and say, great, I'm gonna mix butter and milk and this is going to taste like a chocolate chip cookie. No, it's not. It's going to be a nasty muck. Because
unless you're in politics, then you're going to be taking everything out of context.
Oh my God, right? That was good. That was phenomenal. So I encourage for sure every Christian that's serious about their walk with God. And if it's not Lord of Spirits podcast, find some other podcast where they're really deep into how can I better understand and read and study my Bible properly. It's not a little, magic Harry Potter book where if I say these 3 words in sequence, things are going to work out great. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Yeah, he wasn't talking about that, bro. He was talking about something completely different. As a matter of fact, Paul was saying, I can do without. I could be broke, out in the streets, homeless. That's the things that I can do through Christ who strengthens me. And we've taken that to, I can be an astronaut because I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yeah. So anyway,
that's the same guy who said, I've learned how to be, how to do without, and I've learned how to be content with and without. And
exactly.
That's a good word. Very good word. Well, Gregory, how can people connect with you, learn more about Six Levers Consulting or Iron Claw or some of the other entrepreneurial things that you have going on?
Easiest place, I'll give you 2 links. One is 6 Levers Consulting, so the number 6, 6leversconsulting.com. Everything about the company, how we consult, booking meetings with us, etc. And if you want to connect with me personally, I do not have a staff of executive assistants answering emails for me. If you reach out to the next site I'm about to give you, you will link with me directly. And that's my name, Gregory Richardson, Gregory Richardson, RICHARDSON.ai, GregoryRichardson.ai. That's my personal page. 6leversconsulting.com. That's the business page. Feel free to reach out.
Perfect.
I'd love communicating with, fellow Christians or non-Christians, candidly. You want to ask tech questions, you want to talk about stuff. I am in the Dallas, Texas market most weekends. If you follow me on social, I find a coffee shop somewhere and I park there the entire weekend, literally. From 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon on Saturday. Then I go to church. And then Sunday, usually from around 10 in the morning till about 4 in the afternoon, I'm just sitting there and I'm literally there. Come and ask me anything about technology or AI for free. I'm not selling anything. So if you're in the Dallas, Texas area, follow me on social. Come grab a cup of coffee and sit down. And so I try to be very accessible intentionally. I think that's part of my Christian responsibility as well. So if you want to reach out, I should be fairly reachable.
I'm going to, there's one other initiative that you've done just in the last couple of months called The Table. I wanted to could you share with our audience just a little bit about that, and where, if you know where your next one is going to be, if somebody in our audience would want to join you, really encourage them to do that.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna have to give you the link because the link is a little convoluted. It's basically the table.Six Levers Consulting or something like that. But what the table is a small, free gathering of business leaders, corporate leaders, pastors, whoever that want someplace to sit and talk over a meal about what's working, what's not, what are they struggling with, technology, social media, marketing, hiring, HR, you name it. It's intentionally small. And it was a random idea that came. It was part of what I just said to Chad. I'm trying to be intentional about being out there and reaching people or being available to people that just want to talk. And that's not me saying, I believe I have everyone's answer, so come talk to me. But if I could facilitate a room where there's other people that are smarter than me there, that we could just facilitate a conversation, that's what the table is. We've had a couple of them now. The response has been overwhelmingly good. We've done them in Dallas, where I live. We do them at the end of every month. We did one in Los Angeles last week. The next one coming up is in Dallas. It's actually next Tuesday. So it's Tuesday, the 26th, I think, of May. It's the last Tuesday of every month. We meet, go to the website. That'll probably be the description and the link, and sign up, and you'll get the address of where we meet. We move it around, so it's different places. And just come by, sit, and we talk. Huge encouragement. It's probably the highlight of my month at this point, to
That's
just
awesome.
be in a room with other men, women of all shapes, colors, and sizes, that just we're all out in the marketplace together. What are you seeing? What are you struggling with? What worked for you? It's hugely encouraging. Like, I come out of there with a charge in my spirit and my heart. And I'm like, yeah, I could go on for another month. I'm not the only weirdo out there struggling with social media right now. So
that's
really, really good. Thanks for bringing that up.
And we'll have all the links to everything in the show notes, so people can find them there. Well, Gregory, thanks so much for joining us. Super insightful, super helpful to just to have ministries realizing some of the pitfalls and dangers, but also some of the opportunities that they have. And they don't have to worry about being the last to the market, or they don't have this figured out yet. That's okay. And there's people like you, people like 5Q out there that can help them walk down that path. And thanks so much for joining us today.
This was awesome. Thank you for having me, Chad. We could do this as many other times, even if it's just a Zoom call with you, me, and Josh, or whatever. It's been a pleasure, and it's been an honor, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Ministry at Scale podcast. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep impacting your world for Christ.